Has this ever happened to you? You're in the middle of an art journal page, things are going great, and then all of a sudden you're stumped. You don't know what to do next. I've got some advice for you. So let's get started. The beginning parts of this page worked great. I decided that I'm going to brayer on teals and blues onto my art journal page. This is bright aqua. I'm just going up and down and side to side. Brayering on to break the page is a really quick, easy way. You put on the paint, it's almost dry instantaneously, gives some wonderful texture. There's a bit of randomness about it, but I kind of like that because you don't know what to expect, and sometimes that gives you wonderful things. So this, after the bright aqua, I'm not waiting for it to dry completely, although it is mostly dry. Now I'm putting on some Prussian blue. When you're brayering on, you're adding layers of colors, and at some point you're going to know when you're done. And you just kind of dance between the colors, adding more or less, going back, repeating certain colors. So here I wanted a little bit more of that blue. And if it gets too dark in some areas, you get the right color, you have more layers to add. And the brayering layers are only the first layers because I know I'm going to do some stamping or maybe some stenciling down the road. So then I decide I'm going to add some yellow green. I thought that would make it look interesting. What you see me, I'm using my gel plate to put the paint on the brayer, but you could use just your glass surface of your desk, your craft mat. You could use a craft foam. Now, I wasn't exactly happy with the yellow in there. It just it took it to a place that I didn't want. I just put some more of the bright aqua on top. I bury what I don't like. And very little of that shows through later on, and that's okay. Like I said, I'm just building up the layers of color, the pattern with the brayering. I'm using, I think this is the 2.5 Ranger brayer, and I find that perfect for putting on art journal pages. The 4-inch one I find doesn't work as well. So now I'm going to put some white gesso. You could use white paint. I just have the white gesso right there. And this is just kind of knocking back some of that color, introducing some white space. Now, at this point, I have absolutely no idea, no plan for what focal image is going on here. My goal on this page was to go in that teal blue family and make a interesting background. That was my goal sitting down in my studio. So I think I grabbed my Prussian blue again. I want to put some of that darker in. Ooh, and this is giving some interesting marks, and I'm going to embrace them. And you get a different pattern if you go up or down or sideways. I try not, I go either straight up and down or straight side to side. I don't go across the page, but you could if that's what you like. Play with your brayer and see what effects you like, and then do it again. So now I'm bringing out my DIY stamp, and I'm using the gel plate as a stamp pad. This is a stamp that I made on top of this gum container. And I'm just going to brayer it on. I want a lot of paint. I want to really for the white to show up. So now I'm going to move to the stamping section. And I chose the stamp because it's got fairly large areas of white, and I really want to build some interest into my background. So you could put the paint on with the brayer, or you could use the gel plate as a stamp pad, whatever gives you the best effect. I'm turning the stamp, my DIY stamp. I will link this video if you want to make your own Mark Makers stamps. And don't forget to stamp off the page. So there's one layer of stamps. So now I grabbed, because it kind of had the circular thing, I grabbed this stamp from, it's a Stamperia collection, Sacred Geometry, I believe. And I'm stamping this with the Prussian blue. And I just decide to put this onto the block so I get a better stamp and I can push it down. I'm not looking necessarily for the perfect stamp, but I want a closer approximation to perfect. So the fan, the DIY stamp that I had kind of has a circular element to it. So does this one. You want elements to work together. But mix and match. Put the mix into mixed media. Stamp, stencil, DIY mark makers. Mix it up. Applying it with the brayer works really well onto the stamps. You get a nice even coat. Definitely recommend having a brayer as one of the tools in your stash. And I want to make sure between every layer I give it a good dry. Then I grab another DIY stamp. This one is circular. Remember, we've got that circular theme going on here. And I'm stamping with the Prussian blue again. So we're building lots of interest. We have all those layers of the brayering that gave some texture and pattern to those first colored layers. Then we have the three different stamps, be they DIY or a purchased one. So all in all, I'm very happy with the background. I think there's a lot of interest there, different patterns. But one of the challenges, one of the things that I try to do for myself is I always want to give you something different with each video, instead of redoing the same techniques. So I struggled trying to figure out a focal image for this. And I settle on this magazine girl. I think, okay, that kind of works. But right now I'm thinking, as much as I like the background, something's not quite up, but I'm moving ahead. So that's my big advice to you. Don't give up. You get stuck, keep in motion. An object in motion stays in motion. An artist in motion is going to be inspired. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to glue this down. I know I need to glue it down, so I'm going to glue this down. I'm putting a coat of fluid matte medium underneath and fluid matte medium on top, and I'm drying it. Still didn't know what to do, so I decide, you know what? I know I'm going to shade. So I'm going to shade around this girl. I'm using black acrylic paint on my angle brush, using it's called floating acrylic shading technique. Because I'm hopeful as to if I do this, am I going to get inspired? Is it something going to click in my head to give me the next step? And I'm liking the effect. It's like, yeah, this is positive. The girl's standing out more from the background. So I'm liking the background better now. So I'm building up the shading over time. That background is fairly busy. So shading around it was good. But my point is, I'm doing only the things that I know I need to do in hopes that it'll push me to the next step. Just keep going. So then I'm going to shade around or edge my page because I know I'm going to do that. And I don't know what else to do here. I'm uncertain what I'm going to do with this magazine girl. I'm uncertain. I'm thinking still something is missing in my background. As much as I love the background, it's very one tone. And I just want something maybe a little bit more. But at this point, I don't know what that is. So I'm just going to keep going. And then I decide, I need a little contrast. So I'm going to paint her hair. I grabbed burnt sienna. And so I'm turning my blonde into a redhead. And instantly, once I did that, the red coloring goes really well with that background. You've got that contrast that I've added this color to it. And in the final picture, you can see I've actually elongated her hair. I grew her hair, gave her, oh, okay, I admit it. It looks like a bad wig, but you know what? I love the addition of the red. So then I just keep playing with it. Because the magazine picture, as it is, or any focal image, is just your starting point. That's not where you have to end. You can add to it, change it, alter the colors. But right here, I just like the addition of the burnt sienna or the red. So much so that I decide that I need to add some more pattern into the background in that same color. So I grabbed this chicken wire reverse stencil from the Crafter's Workshop and use my makeup sponge to apply it to the background. And that's what was missing in my background. That contrasting color. Too much of the same and not enough variation. This stencil is very fine. If I had used a bigger stencil, more of this color would show up, but I didn't want to overpower the beautiful background that I had. So I chose this one. So don't stop if you're stuck. Keep going. Though sometimes take a break, walk away and come back. Give it some time because sometimes when you're in the thick of it, it's too overwhelming and you need to stop. Go have a coffee, go watch some TV. table it for till the next day. So I'm really, really happy with the addition of the burnt sienna to the background and changing her hair color. And when you're using magazine pictures, have fun with them. I was toying with the idea of painting her coat a color, and I could have done that, left her hair alone and painted her whole color. So here's why it works. Here's where we were, the background, and it's right across the color wheel. So those colors are going to boost each other up. There's going to be a lot of energy there. So I've added her hair. So now I grab my Sassy Sayings sentiment pack and I put, people will stare. Make it worth their while. She's my little sassy girl there. So that's the whole theme of be you. The world will adjust. I love this sentiment pack with my Julie Nutting dolls or my magazine pictures, my girls. I can always find just the right sassy comment to go with whatever expression they have on there. So now I'm cutting down the sentiment and arranging it in a certain way, and then just gluing it down with the fluid matte medium. And that's the joy of the digital sentiment packs. You can make them bigger, you can make them smaller, you can cut them up however you want to fit whatever you've created. Now I grab my Secura glaze pen and I'm just adding some dash work in and around on the coat. Like I said, you could have painted the coat a different color. You can add line work, sketching, doodling, just to make it more interesting. Again, what you cut out of the magazine is just the starting point. So remember, if you're stuck, an artist in motion continues in motion. Keep doing what you know you can do, and hope that inspiration will come to you. There is a quote, I think it's a Van Gogh quote, inspiration exists, but it has to find you working. And that's so true. I am my most creative when I'm in the act of creating. One idea leads to the next. Sometimes I'm very surprised at where I end up, and I'm not even sure where my ideas come from. But I know they come from being engaged in the creative process. I'm just outlining my sentiment with the Secura glaze pen. And then just adding a bit of shading in the hair just to make it a little more real. Like I said earlier, it looks like a bad wig, but I had fun, and that's all that matters. And then I'm adding some shading on the coat just to make it stand out. And Before you do any shading or painting on the magazine thing, you want to make sure that you've sealed it with the fluid matte medium. Remember when I glued it down? I put the glue underneath, the matte medium underneath, and then I put it on top to seal it and turn it into a non-porous surface. Otherwise, it just wicks weirdly into the magazine paper. If you like the background, you can duplicate the background, put a totally different focal image. The background is not specific to any particular focal image. But I would encourage the orange red tones in there somehow because that's going to play really well off the colors that I've chosen. And there is the finished page. Love the background, love the addition of the burnt sienna. That was a total win that came out of the creative process. I like the detailing on the coat, just gave it a little bit extra something something. So until next time, go get creative. And if you're stuck, just keep going.